Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
What is up, you guys? Welcome to the stream as the New York Mets drop a very frustrating, very winnable game this evening against the Chicago Cubs. A final score of 6-5 at Citi Field this evening. Really tough one just from start to finish. Lots of missed opportunities. Not a great pitching performance from Tyler McGill. The bullpen obviously giving up 2 insurance runs that proved to be the difference late in the game. So a very winnable game that unfortunately the Mets come up just short in. Guys, welcome to the stream. I'm Tony Metro. If you're new, be sure to subscribe. Leave this video a like. Goes a long way toward helping the channel. Trying to get to our goal of 1,500 subscribers by the end of May, so I appreciate that. And you can also check out all my other platforms, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, where I post daily Mets content. So with that being said, let's get into this game. The final score doesn't do it justice. Yes, the Mets only lose by 1, the final 6-5, but the Mets had so many opportunities to do it in this one, and unfortunately, really the only bat that showed up for them was that of Batty. So let's begin with the pitching end, though. Tyler McGill on the mound today. We knew he didn't have great historical numbers against the Chicago Cubs. 2 starts, little under 7 innings, had given up 13 runs in that time, or he had an ERA of 13.5 over that time. Immediately out of the gate, little blue pit from Pete Crow Armstrong sets that inning up. Throw from Francisco Alvarez on a potential steal goes into center field, and that puts a runner at third. It becomes first and third, and before you know it, the Cubs have a 1-0 lead. And then former Met killer, still Met killer, I guess, but former Atlanta Brave, we don't see him as often anymore, Dansby Swanson with the RBI single to make it 2-0. So I will say this, the bases were still loaded there in the first with 2 outs after Swanson's infield single that Batty couldn't quite get the throw off the first in time. McGill was able to settle down and get out of that inning with relatively a minimal amount of damage, it being only 2 runs there. So I give him credit for that. But overall, it was not a super sharp performance from McGill tonight. He clearly didn't have his best stuff. Didn't have great control. Didn't have that wipeout pitch that he normally does that strikes batters out and puts them away. This is coming off his last start against the Cardinals where he gave up 4 runs in 5 innings. I kind of excused him for that one because he was scheduled to pitch last Saturday. That game was rained out, and then he actually got pushed to the nightcap of the doubleheader on Sunday. So, you can't really put a whole lot of blame on him for that one. And I don't blame him for this particular game either. I'm just saying it's now back-to-back starts where Tyler McGill has not looked as sharp as he did his first 6 or so here in 2025. Guys, welcome to the stream. Jonathan, what's up? Frustrating, but we got Barry Bonds Batty. I love it. I'm sitting here watching this game saying, who is this guy? 3 home runs in 2 days. I mean, what has gotten into Batty? I don't know, but I hope it's here to stay. Unbelievable. Mets talk Hayden, what's up? Should the Mets explore looking at a new hitting coach? Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people don't like Eric Chavez. I don't know how much a hitting coach really influences a team in the lineup, but I mean, sometimes it works and it, jumpstarts the team with a different philosophy, different approach at the plate. I don't know if I really blame Chavez necessarily, but there are some times where you could say, look, they're overly aggressive. They're not aggressive enough. They're hitting too many ground balls and they're runners in scoring position, which we're going to get to. Don't worry. Yeah, that's a huge issue. But yeah, Alvy has really been tough. But that throw, honestly, looked like it should have been made. The catch should have been made by Lindor. It was a short hop, but it was right where you would want the ball to be for him to just simply catch tag, apply the tag immediately on the base runner's hand or foot. So I don't know. They did give Alvarez the error on that throw, but from what I saw, it appeared to be a fine play to me, or a fine throw at least. Hold on, guys, while I try to get this over here working. For whatever reason, we're having some technical difficulties with our highlights. Not that you probably really want to even watch them. It's pretty much all Cubs and Batty, right? I mean, tough one. But let's go back to Tyler McGill here for a second. Gives up a run in the 3rd, gives up the solo home run then to Dansby Swanson in the 4th. Can't wait to see him get out of town. I'm sick of watching that dude. I mean, I was already sick of him in Atlanta. Now that he's back with the Cubs, no more. Thank you very much. But 4-0. So overall for Tyler McGill, he finishes with the final line, 4 2/3 innings, gives up those 4 earned runs on 7 hits and 2 walks. So His ER right now for the year sits at 3.10. I'm not super overly concerned about it. You know, even in what we're calling a bad start for Tyler McGill right now, it's still 4 2/3, nearly 5 innings and 4 runs. Now, I know if you said this to someone 15, 20, 30 years ago, you would say that's a horrible start. But starting pitching has changed. You're obviously looking for more length out of him. But, you know, 4 runs in this era of baseball, look, I'm not super upset or concerned with Tyler McGill. You know, gives up a home run here. First runs he's actually given up all year at Citi Field. He's been a demon at home for the Mets this year. Obviously, we know the Cubs have the highest scoring offense in baseball. They are tremendous, and they came out and they put some wood on bat today, or wood on ball today. And you know, they came out aggressive, swinging. They took their walks when they needed them, and it set them up for those first few. Then, of course, we get the home run from Brett Batty. Bomb to right field. I mean, you know, 2 outs and Brett Batty launching one into the bullpens in right center field. And all of a sudden, the Mets are right back in this game. Second home run in 2 days. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to think, like, does this guy need to be more considered for third base or for DH and getting everyday starts? I mean, it's a small sample size, only 2 games here, but pretty impressive. I mean, then, of course, the Mets end up, unfortunately, turning to Max Kranick in this one, and he gets into trouble in the 8th inning. He allows 2 runs to come in as he walks a batter, gives up 2 hits, and then one of them being the 2-run single to Amaya, or whatever his name is, the catcher for the Cubs. I mean, just barely sneaking through the left side of the infield. The Mets had so many opportunities in this game to score runs, and they just couldn't get it to happen. You know, they had it in the 6th inning with a chance with Brandon Nimmo at the plate. He hits a line drive to left field. That's just right at Seiya Suzuki. He makes a nice play on the inning before that. Pete Alonso hit a line drive to third base, right into the glove of whoever was that guy. He used to play for the John Birdie, of course, the former Marlin, the guy that also kills the Mets. But then probably the worst of them all was in the 7th inning when the Mets had first and second with 1 out for Juan Soto and Pete Alonso. And Soto goes down swinging on a slider right down the middle. And unfortunately, Pete Alonso hits one up the middle exactly perfectly where Swanson is positioned to end that one. Of course, the 9th inning comes along. Jeff McNeil worked a tremendous at-bat. I got to give credit where it's due. That was a tremendous at-bat from Jeff McNeil in the 9th to lead off. Comes in cold off the bench, pinch hitting for Tyrone Taylor. It's had to have been a 9-pitch, maybe 10-pitch at-bat, fouling balls away, nearly hits a double down the line. It's inches foul, but still with the resolve to work it out for a walk, put the leadoff runner on first, and unfortunately, Francisco Lindor falls into an 0-2 count, and then on 1 and 2, it's a perfect comeback for the pitcher to turn the 1-6-3 double play. And at that point, the air was all out of the balloon, even after Brett Baty's second homer of the game in the 8th, 2-run shot to left field, opposite field, almost identical to yesterday's home run. And then Soto, of course, just grounding out to end this one. So the Mets finish 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. You're not going to win many baseball games going 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. And it's like this team has gone from really good with 2 outs and 2 strikes or runners in scoring position, and then the next day they go and do something like they did this evening. 1 for 10. I mean, Juan Soto, 0 for 5 with 2 strikeouts in this one. Can't get on him too much. He's been super hot lately for this team, but there were so many missed opportunities for this offense. He was in the middle of a couple of those. Pete Alonso didn't come through in a few opportunities as well. You know, we give them a little bit of leeway because of how they've been performing so far this year, but collectively as a group, going 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position is just inexcusable. It just can't happen. It was really frustrating. Like I said, the Soto at bat in the 7th, when the Cubs reliever, who was nasty with that 100-mile-per-hour fastball and with that slider, but started to lose the zone. After Tyrone Taylor had his little bloop single into center field, Francisco Lindor worked a walk. And then even in the at-bat with Soto, he was pretty wild and all over the place. And that slider, it was center cut. I mean, it did not have a whole lot of break on it, at least from what I could tell. And Soto just missed it. I mean, he just plain flat out missed it. Great opportunity there when the score was 4-3 to either tie or give the Mets the lead. But just like the rest of this evening, the Mets bats just come up short. Can't do enough. And that's why I titled this video here tonight, Frustrating Loss for the Mets, because it was a very winnable game. You don't get the best pitching performance out of Tyler McIll in this one. He only gives you 4 2/3. But then they turn to the bullpen. They get a scoreless inning and 2/3 from Huascar Brazoban. They get 2 outs from Genesis Cabrera in his 3rd appearance with the Mets. Then they go to Kranick. Unfortunately, didn't work out. You know, those runs come in on a 2-out single to left field from the Cubs catcher who, you know, is barely hitting his own weight. And unfortunately, it's one of those games where they got the ball through the infield a couple times. The Mets couldn't, but Mets had a lot of opportunities to do it. They struck out in some of them. They hit into some bad luck in some of them. At the end of the day, though, 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position, it's just not going to cut it. What do you guys think? What is probably the most frustrating part of this loss to you? Let me know in the comment section. Like I said, for me, it's without a doubt the lineup. Without a doubt. I mean, you know, who else could you look at and not be frustrated by? But that's enough negativity. Let's harp on a little bit of the positivity. Brett Batty, 3 home runs in the last 2 games. You know, I don't know if he was put in today's lineup because he hit the home run yesterday and maybe he's starting to feel something a little bit, or Mendoza's thinking, hey, maybe we can try to tap into it, you know, catch lightning in a bottle with him, see if it gets his career going, you know, not just his season, but his once very promising career going. And I mean, it is paying off in spades. 2 more home runs tonight. First one, obviously, we know, pulled to right center field. That's probably the deepest part of the park at Citi Field, out into the bullpens there. And I mean, it was a good 10 feet into the bullpen. So really impressive pull power there from Brett Batty. But then to be able to go to left field like he did yesterday, this is something Brett Batty did his entire minor league career. This is something that when they scouted him out of high school, they said, this guy has power to all fields. When he was first coming up in 2022, I always gave him that comp to Freddie Freeman. And now we probably would laugh at that. You would laugh at me for saying that, but he had that type of approach at the plate where he could hit the ball with power, gap to gap, line to line, and put the ball over the fence at any ballpark to any of the different parts of the wall. And we're seeing it on display now. Really impressive swings from Brett Batty, pulling the first home run, going opposite field to left on the other one, just like he did last night. 3 homers last 2 games, like I said. What do you guys think about Batty? Should he just continue to get starts at third base at this point? I mean, I don't want to make it Mark Vientos the permanent DH because I don't know how that will do, what it will do to him mentally. You know, only Mark Vientos can know that, but there have been times in the past where young players, they come up, if you move them off a position or you change their position or if you put them in the DH role only, it doesn't always bode well for them. And especially coming off his year last year, I have no doubt he's still going to be this really promising 25 to 30 home run bat. So I don't want to mess with him. I also don't want him and Batty to be mixing and matching at third base and not really having an idea of who's playing third each night. So what would you guys do with third base and DH at this point with Brett Batty getting hot? And do you believe in the Batty hype? Is it for real? I'm still not sold yet, but I'm liking what I'm seeing. If you give me another week of some quality at-bats, they don't all have to be home runs, but some doubles, some power to the gaps, I might have to say you start penciling this guy in every day. Let's see. James, what's up? 7-8 in the last 15. Ain't good. Boston, LAD. Yeah, we got a tough schedule coming up. We do. But, hey, you know what? We already played some tough teams, too. You know, the Diamondbacks are a tough team. We played the Phillies. We swept them. We won, what, I guess it would have been 5 out of 7 with the Cardinals this year, and they're on like a 6-game winning streak, so they're not as bad as most people probably painted them out to be in the beginning of the year. Look, we haven't played the Padres. We haven't played the Dodgers. You know, Yankees, they're good. I don't think they're any better than the Mets. I don't think they are better than the Mets. And Boston has totally been underwhelming so far this year. They're only, 2 games over 500? They got their own issues. Whole can of worms with Rafael Devers, who, by the way, calling David Stearns, that's not happening. The Mets are not trading for Rafi Devers, but I might be interested. I'm just saying. By the way, terrible loss for the Knicks today. Can you believe? I mean, that was brutal. You kind of knew it was over by the first quarter, unfortunately. Like, there's a difference between being down 20 on the road, down 20 at home. For some reason, I feel like there's a better opportunity to win it on the road in Boston, like they did those first 2 games, just because the crowd starts to get nervous. Whereas with the Knicks playing at MSG today, when they go down 20 in the first quarter, basically, the crowd is totally out of it. The air is all out of the balloon. So it was a tough day to be a fan of the orange and blue team teams in New York, Mets and Knicks. Luckily, the Islanders didn't do anything to mess up today, so I guess you got that. Oh, thank you for that. Knicks. Great at-bat by McNeil in the ninth. Yeah, no doubt about it. Awesome at-bat from McNeil. I was saying the whole time, like, dude, just give us a quality at-bat. Don't swing out of your shoes. Don't swing at everything out of the strike zone. Just work a good at-bat. Give us a chance. Awesome at-bat from Jeff McNeil in the ninth. Unfortunately, Lindor hits into the tailor-made 1-6-3 double play. And at that point, even with Soto coming up, I was like, nah, this is over. It's not happening. Soto obviously had a 3-1 count. Grounds out to second base. I don't remember exactly where that pitch was on 3-1 that he grounded out, but was hoping at least for a walk, give Pete Alonso a chance to hit a 2-run homer for a walk-off, but never got that opportunity. We never saw that. So that was a really tough one. Batty at third. Mark, learn Japanese. Better get ready to learn Chinese, buddy. I don't know about that. I'm not ready to do that with Mark. Hey, Vientos had 2 good hits today. He had a laser of a line drive in, I don't know, the 4th or something like that, or the 5th, and then he had a base hit there in the 8th inning. He scored on both of Batty's home runs. So, look, Vientos, it's not hitting for the power we want. Average is still really low. OPS still well below what we're hoping it'll be, but he's starting to hopefully put it together a little bit here. A couple nice base hits tonight. High exit velos on them. Good contact. So give him credit for that at least. Let's see what else. Yeah, thanks for trading PCA to the Cubs. Yeah, you guys better enjoy him, man. He is a stud. He is a absolute lightning rod. Dude can just turn a single into a triple just like he did tonight. Gets the bloop base hit, stolen base attempt, ball goes into center field, boom, he's at third. I mean, just unbelievable. There's not a lot of players to do that. You even heard AJ Przinsky say on the broadcast tonight, the dude just glides in center field. Like, such great speed. He's just super smooth out there with it. So, good for you guys. Good for the Cubs. If you guys, Cub fans, are still watching this, for getting PCA. We appreciate the 2 months of Javi Baez we got. That was great. In a lost 2021 season, that was fantastic. Thanks a lot to, I guess it was Scott who was the GM at that point. Maybe it was the creep Porter who was exposing himself to reporters or something like that. I don't remember which dumb GM that did something stupid to get fired was the one that traded PCA to the Cubs. By the way, if you didn't hear this recently, the Cubs actually asked about Matt Allen when the Mets were talking about the Javi Baez trade back in 2021. Matt Allen, who the Mets drafted in 2020 out of high school, is one of the top pitching prospects in that year's draft, who since then has gotten 2 elbow surgeries and did not pitch for the last 4 years. He only just resumed pitching for the Mets this year. The Mets said to the Cubs, he's off limits. No. So the Cubs said, well, what about Pete Crow Armstrong? And the Mets were like, okay, that's how that trade went down, by the way. Imagine the Mets right now with Pete Crow Armstrong instead of Matt Allen basically rehabbing his career hanging on a thread in Double-A right now. Totally different lineup, but it is what it is. Congratulations to the Cubbies for that one. Mets will win the East. Yeah, I hope so. It looks like the Cubs are going to run away with the Central because the Brewers do not look like the team they have been in the past. They don't have that David Stearns magic anymore. Willie Adames is gone. They traded Devin Williams. They were able to get away with that for so long because they had a GM like David Stearns who had all these savvy additions, this pitching lab out there in Milwaukee. He's now since brought to New York, but they look like that's going to fade soon now without Stearns. Reds are always going to be the Reds. I mean, not fair to say, but they don't look like they're going to be taking any major leaps and bounds from the previous years. And then the Pirates. Can we talk about the Pirates for a second here? Look, I know this is a Mets post game, but we talk all baseball. They are ruined. They are the exact reason, actually, though, why baseball is being ruined, why baseball is not growing. You have them firing their manager, Derek Shelton, on Friday after this horrendous start they're off to. I watched this interview yesterday of Paul Skeens, totally dejected, saying, we're not playing well enough. Someone had to get fired for it. Someone's got to be held responsible. Well, how about the Pirates owner, Nutting, whatever his name is, invests in the team more than $5 million this offseason. The guy gets $20 to $30 million from the luxury tax penalty that the Mets and the Dodgers and the Yankees and all the big spending, big market teams have to pay. And he doesn't reinvest any of it into his own roster. So instead of just letting Paul Skeens spend the first 3 years here until he's disgruntled enough and asks for a trade to the Dodgers, and then the Dodgers send a haul of prospects back and they botch their careers, then how about you start actually just trying to win on the field right now? I don't know, just crazy idea, crazy thought. I mean, whatever, you know, I don't like to count other people's money, but this guy's a billionaire. He could do it if he wanted to. He does it. He wants to pocket the money. So it is what it is. But embarrassment out in Pittsburgh. Embarrassment from their owner, nutting. I mean, Derek Shelton getting the axe for their GM not having the funds to spend on any quality players and field a competitive team. That's the problem with baseball. Not big market teams spending, not the Dodgers, not the Mets, not the Yankees, none of that. No, it's the teams not spending because they want to pocket the money. So that's my rant for it. That's my rant for baseball as a whole today. But let's go back to the Mets game, guys. If you guys are tuning in, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to give this video a like. Really appreciate it. It goes a long way toward helping out the channel. We do daily Mets content on here. We're talking a little bit of everything here, but mostly Mets Cubs post-game. Cubbies taking this one a final of 6-5. They come out and score 4 runs in the first 3 innings off Tyler McGill as he gives up a home run to Dansby Swanson, couple RBI base hits. Brett Batty, 2 home runs in this one. Unfortunately, it's not enough for them. That was all the scoring for the Mets. The 3-run homer in the 4th inning to get this to a 1-run game, and then the 2-run homer with a 6-3 score to make it a 1-run game again in the 8th inning. Unfortunately, the Mets as a team go 1 for 10 total with that 1 hit, of course, from Brett Batty, and they fall just short in this one. We don't love how bad the Braves are. Yeah, we all hate the Braves, but they're kind of coming around. I mean, I'm not like looking over my shoulder yet as a Mets fan, but they're the Braves. They play with devil magic. They will find a way back into the division race. They always do it, okay? You can never count the Braves out, okay? They will find a way. They will cast spells. They will do whatever it takes. They will trip their own grandmother if it means getting them back into the race. That's what the Atlanta Braves do. You've always got to be wary of them. But guys, what's your big takeaway from this game? Could be Tyler McGill's start. This is now back-to-back starts where he doesn't go past the 5th inning and gives up 4 runs. Is it the Mets offense? Of course, I've said it now a lot. 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Juan Soto with an 0 for 5 with 2 Ks in this one. Max Kranick, you know, unfortunately, the only blemish in the bullpen here today, giving up those 2 runs in the 8th inning. Those were obviously the backbreaker. You know, with, I guess it was, what's his name? Amaya, I believe is his name for the Cubbies, with that base hit. And Amaya into left field. It's actually on the screen right there. Like I said, it's the lineup for me. It's the inconsistencies. You know, we just haven't got enough consistency out of this offense. You know, we go 7 runs on Wednesday against the D-backs, 7 more yesterday where we blast 4 home runs off Jamison Tyone. And then we come out today and they can't do anything with guys at 2nd or 3rd. So it's got to be something it has to be figured out. Obviously, every game is not going to be perfect, but this has been something that unfortunately has just been coming up too often for this offense. And as Hayden said in the chat earlier, maybe this is something to do with Eric Chavez. Maybe it is something to do with the Mets hitting coach. You know, the philosophy that they have at the plate of with 2 strikes, with runners in scoring position, with 2 outs. You know, does that need to be adjusted? You know, I'm not sure personally. But there's got to be something that gives them a little bit more consistency with this team. So that's just how I feel about it. But sound off in the chat. Let me know. And if you're a Knicks fan, how are you feeling? Because that was rough today. Oh, my goodness. That was rough today. Really, really tough loss for the Knicks. But still up 2-1 in that series. So, you know, obviously we're in command, but you got to win now on Monday. You cannot lose these 2 at the Garden after you stole the first 2 in Boston. All momentum goes immediately to the Celtics. They steal home court back if that's the case. So cannot have that. Cannot have that. But Guys, I think we are going to wrap it up here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, the Mets dropping this one, final of 6-5. Thanks so much for watching. Rubber game tomorrow, though. Let's get to that real quick before we go. On the mound for the Metsies, it's going to be, I believe we have Griffin Canning. That's right, and he'll be taking on Boyd for the Cubbies. Let me just double check on Matthew Boyd. Yeah, guy's been around for a couple years now. I believe he spent some time with Detroit in the past. That's right, the first 7 years of his career before going to Seattle for a little, Detroit, Cleveland, now ends up with Chicago. So far, so good for him. 7 starts on the year, 2.75 ERA. He's a lefty, so we're probably going to see some Starling Marte in the lineup. I don't know about Brett Batty. Maybe not. I mean, how can you sit him at this point with 3 home runs in the past 2 games? But it'll be interesting to see if Carlos Mendoza decides, hey, this guy's got to get some run now. He's hot, and just, continue riding the hot hand at this point. So Griffin Canning's been great. Obviously, we know 5-1, 2.5 ERA so far on the year. His last time out made the start against the Diamondbacks out in Arizona. Went 5 innings, give up just 1 run, but came on 6 hits, just 1 walk. So pretty good performance there from Canning. What the Mets really need, though, is some length out of their starters. Clay Holmes gave us 6 yesterday, which is pretty solid, but just 4 2/3 from McGill today. Just 5 in that previous outing in Arizona for Griffin Canning. Overall, I would guesstimate the Mets are probably, as a starting staff, giving them on average 5 1/3 innings. That would be my guess. 5 1/3 innings. I got to look it up. I can't do it off the top of my head right here, right now, but that would be the one thing that you could ask for more from this starting rotation, is for them to go deeper into games. Because once again tonight, after using 4 relievers yesterday, the Mets had to use 4 more today. They go to Kranick, they go to Diaz, they go to Cabrera, and they go to Huascar Brazoban. You can't be using 4 relievers every game. It's just not sustainable for a 6-month season. So they're going to have to get some more length out of their starters, or they're going to have to start pushing some of their relievers a little bit longer. Huascar Brazoban has been great doing that so far this year. Nice to see Genesis Cabrera come in, give them 2 outs. I don't look at him as a long-term guy. That's how a bullpen, that's how a pitching staff works in baseball. You're going to go through a lot of different arms, and you're basically just saying, hey, thank you for your service. Your time here is up. We appreciate it. That's what the Mets are basically doing, in my opinion, with Genesis Cabrera, guys like him. So you appreciate that. But long term, the Mets do need a little more length out of the starting rotation so that we can take some pressure, take some innings off this bullpen, which still overall has been really, really good. And it has given the Mets ample opportunities to win in this game, to take the lead, to shift momentum. Unfortunately, the backbreaker coming off of Max Kranick with 2 outs there in the 8th inning, where Brett Baty's second home run of the game would have given the Mets a 5-4 lead in that situation. It's always hard to say if this, if that, but that is the truth. And unfortunately, the Mets leaving so many runners in scoring position this evening is really their undoing in this one. But again, they'll have a chance to take Game 3, the rubber match between the Mets and the Cubs, tomorrow. It'll be Griffin Canning and Matthew Boyd taking each other on at 12:10 there at Citi Field. Guys, check out my content. Check out my channel. Daily Mets content. We're always talking baseball on there. And guys, you could also follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Links to all those platforms are down here in the bio. That's going to do it for us here this evening. Until next time, I'm Tony Metro. Stay true to the orange.